In Umadara, people say there was once a woman who could stand in a crowd and still not be seen, for she was not a ghost or crazy, but forgotten. And this is the story of how two twins were born on the same day and how only one of them remained. Umadara was the kind of village where everybody knew your name before you learned to say it properly, and where people greeted you with smiles while their opinions sat behind their teeth like stones. It was a village of red earth, wide farms, evening fires, and elders whose words carried weight, even when those words were careless. That was where Mama Ajiro lived, a woman known for keeping her home steady even when life pushed on her from every side. When she became pregnant, the village watched her like a pot on a fire. Some people prayed for her, and others simply waited for gossip to grow. The night Mama Ajiro went into labor, rain fell softly. Not the kind that makes people run, but the kind that makes the night feel quiet and serious. The women gathered, the midwife arrived, and before dawn came, Mama Ajiro delivered two twin girls. In Umadara, twins were not an ordinary thing. Some believed twins brought blessings, others believed they carried mysteries that must never be joked about. The first baby came out small and slim, with a strong cry, and the women in the room nodded in satisfaction, as if the child had already proven herself. The second baby came out heavier, with fuller cheeks and a body that looked like the womb had held her a little closer. She was healthy, but she was different in a way the village could not ignore. The names were given after the 8th day, when elders sat outside Mama Ajiro's compound and spoke prayers over the children. The slimmer twin was named Ugo, and the heavier twin was named Veronica. At first, Mama Ajiro tried to raise them like one heart in two bodies. She dressed them the same, fed them from the same pot, and made them sleep side by side. But Umadara had its own habits, and one of those habits was comparing people until the comparison became a curse. Visitors would carry Ugo and praise her face, then look at Veronica as if they needed to say sorry for her being there. Women would laugh and call it play, men would shake their heads and call it truth, and children would repeat everything they heard because that was how village cruelty learned to grow legs. Mama Ajiro noticed early, and it worried her. She would correct people gently, then firmly, but each correction only made them laugh harder, as if kindness was weakness. Still, Veronica grew with a quiet patience that surprised even her mother. She did not fight for attention. She did not beg for approval. She simply listened, watched, and learned what people were really like. Ugo, on the other hand, grew into the kind of girl who noticed the power inside praise and began to enjoy it. As the twins entered their teenage years, Umadara was no longer only watching them grow. Umadara was deciding, without anyone's permission, who deserved love and who deserved ridicule. And that decision would soon open a door none of them knew how to close. As the tweens grew older, the difference between them became less about their bodies and more about how the village treated them. Ugo learned early that admiration could be collected like jewelry, and she wore it proudly. When she walked through the market square, women called her a fine girl and asked after her mother. Men greeted her with extra respect, and even younger children moved aside for her as if she was already important. Ugo accepted it all with a smile that looked sweet on the outside, but carried quiet arrogance underneath. She began to speak as if the village owed her the best of everything, and because people were already used to praising her, nobody corrected her quickly enough. Veronica's experience was the opposite. She could do the same work, carry the same water, and still be treated like an afterthought, even when she dressed well. Even when her hair was neatly done, even when she smiled, the village saw her through the one thing they had decided to focus on, and they acted as if she was lucky just to be tolerated. Some people made jokes loudly in front of her, then laughed again when she did not react. Others did it quietly,
the way whispering can cut deeper than shouting. Over time, Veronica learned that reacting gave people more fun, so she began to protect herself with calmness. She would answer greetings politely, do her chores, and move on. The village took that calmness as weakness, but it was not weakness, it was survival. Ugo did not make things better. It started with small teasing at home, the kind siblings might throw at each other, but it did not stay small for long. If Veronica wore a new wrapper, Ugo would say it looked stretched. If Veronica joined other girls in laughter, Ugo would ask loudly what she was laughing about, as if she had no right to joy. If boys came around, Ugo would make sure Veronica stood behind her, not beside her. The cruelest part was that Ugo said these things in a playful voice, so anyone who challenged her would be accused of being too sensitive.
Having no sense of humor, Mama Ajiro tried to correct her, but Ugo was clever. She would apologize with her mouth and continue her behavior. One afternoon, during a village gathering, a group of young men talked about marriage as if it was a game. Someone said Ugo would marry a wealthy man, and they all agreed quickly. Then one boy, trying to impress the others, turned to Veronica and laughed that no man would carry such a load. The laughter that followed was heavy and shameless, and even some women joined in, pretending it was just teasing. Veronica stood there with her hands held together, letting the insult wash over her. She did not cry, she did not shout, she simply looked away and walked slowly home. The silence she carried that day was not empty, it was filled with things she could not say out loud. That night, Mama Ajiro found her sitting alone behind the house, staring toward the trees where the village path narrowed and disappeared. Veronica looked like a girl who had accepted too much, and Mama Ajiro's heart tightened because a mother knows when her child is swallowing pain like food. She held Veronica close and told her that Umadara did not decide her worth. Veronica nodded, but her eyes said something else, something deeper. It was the look of someone who had started to wonder whether life would ever reward patience, or whether patience was just another way of suffering politely. And while the village kept praising Ugo's beauty, they did not notice the quiet changes in Veronica, changes that would later explain why the impossible chose her and not the one who believed she deserved everything. The market day that changed everything did not begin with thunder or spiritual signs. It began like any other market day in Umadara, with women spreading goods on mats, traders shouting prices, smoke rising from roasted corn, and children running between legs like they owned the earth. Market day was not only for buying and selling, it was also when the village measured itself, when people compared clothes, compared families, compared progress, and used gossip as entertainment. Mama Ajiro sent both girls to the market to help her sell dried vegetables and palm oil, and as usual, Ugo walked ahead as if Veronica behind her was only a shadow. Veronica carried the heavier load without complaining. She greeted customers with soft respect that made older women nod in approval, and she arranged the goods neatly, careful not to waste anything. Ugo, however, cared more about how she looked while working. Laughed loudly with her friends, accepted compliments like a queen receiving honor, and sometimes threw small insults at Veronica, especially when she noticed boys watching. At one point, an older woman asked Veronica for a measure of palm oil, and Veronica served her politely. The woman thanked her, then added, almost like an afterthought, that her kindness was too much for a girl like her. It sounded like advice, but it carried the familiar poison, the belief that some people do not deserve certain good things. Later that day, as the sun climbed and people complained about the heat, a strange change entered the market. It was not dramatic at first. A few traders looked up, then quieted, then stood straighter as if someone important was coming. Women adjusted their wrappers quickly, and even young men who were usually loud started acting with forced maturity. Then Veronica saw him, not because someone announced him, but because the air around him seemed to change.
He did not arrive with an army or with drama. He arrived with 2 attendants and a calm confidence that made people move aside without being told. He was a young man dressed simply but richly, the kind of richness that does not beg for attention. His eyes moved over the market like someone searching for something specific, not like someone admiring what he could buy. People whispered quickly, "Prince Oni." Some said he had been away a long time. Some said he traveled with elders and learned things ordinary men should not know. Some said he did not choose friends easily. But everyone agreed on one thing: his presence was not casual. Ugo noticed him too, and her whole posture changed. She fixed her hair, softened her smile, and began to act like a girl ready for destiny. She nudged Veronica to stand farther back, almost as if Veronica being close could lower her own chances. Veronica obeyed without arguing, because that was what she had learned in Umadara: step aside and avoid unnecessary shame. But what happened next was the first crack in everything the village believed. Prince Oni did not look toward Ugo the way men usually did. He did not even pause near her. His gaze moved past her like she was part of the market air. Instead, his eyes settled on Veronica, not with pity, not with surprise, but with recognition, like someone who had been searching for a face he once saw in a half-remembered dream. Veronica, confused, lowered her eyes respectfully, expecting him to pass, but he did not. He stepped closer, and the market fell into silence. Then, in a voice calm enough to sound ordinary but firm enough to demand attention, he greeted Veronica directly and asked her name. That question alone felt like an insult to Ugo, because in Umadara, beauty usually received the first greeting. Veronica answered quietly, and Prince Oni nodded as if he was confirming something. The villagers watched, waiting for laughter, waiting for the prince to correct himself, waiting for the normal order of things to return. But the order did not return. Instead, the prince smiled slightly, as though the story he came to find had finally opened its first page. And in that moment, Ugo's eyes hardened, because nothing hurts like being ignored in front of the people who always praised you. After Prince Oni spoke to Veronica in the market, the silence that followed did not feel normal. It felt like the kind of silence that comes when something happens people cannot explain, and they do not want to say the wrong thing. Traders who had been shouting prices earlier suddenly remembered they had throats. Women who had been laughing with their friends suddenly became serious. Even children who usually ran around stopped for a moment because the adults around them had changed. In Umadara, attention was a kind of power. Everybody knew that, and the truth was simple. Prince Oni had given Veronica a kind of attention the village never gave her, and that alone was enough to shake the ground under everybody's feet. Veronica herself looked confused. She did not know if she should do more than she already did. She answered his greeting, lowered her eyes, and held her hands together like a girl who did not want to invite trouble. But Prince Oni did not move away quickly like people expected. He asked her how her mother was doing, and he spoke to her as if she mattered. It was not a loud talk, but it was clear enough for nearby people to hear. Veronica tried to answer politely, and her voice stayed steady, even though her heart was beating fast. She was used to being ignored, so being noticed like that felt strange, like wearing a cloth that did not fit. Ugo stood close by, but the prince's eyes did not rest on her. It was as if she was not the one he came for, and for Ugo, that was the worst kind of shame. She had always believed her beauty was a door that opened any place she wanted to enter. She had watched boys struggle for her smile, watched women praise her face, watched even elders speak gently when she was around. But in that market, with everybody watching, she felt her power slip like sand through her fingers. She tried to laugh and act like nothing happened.
Mattered, but her laugh did not sound the same. She adjusted her wrapper, fixed her hair again, and waited for the prince to look her way. He did not. When Prince Okeni finally left the market area, people began to talk again, but their voices were low at first, as if the prince might still be listening. Some women whispered that Veronica must have used spiritual powers. Some men laughed and said it was impossible for a prince to choose someone like that, so something must be wrong. A few people even said Veronica must be a hidden daughter of someone special. But the truth was that nobody wanted to believe the simplest thing, which was that the prince's eyes had seen something Umadara refused to see. Ugo did not wait for the gossip to end. She picked up her things sharply and told Veronica they were going home. On the way back, she did not talk much. When Veronica asked if she was okay, Ugo answered coldly and said Veronica should not start acting like she had arrived. Veronica stayed quiet and kept walking. She was learning something new. It was possible for someone to dislike you even more when you received the smallest favor. And that evening, while Umadara carried the market story from compound to compound, Ugo sat in her room and promised herself one thing. Whatever was happening, she would not allow Veronica to take what she believed was meant for her. The next morning, Umadara woke up with one main topic, and no matter how people tried to pretend they had other work, their mouths always returned to it. Some said they saw Prince Okeni speaking to Veronica like a man who had already decided. Some said he only asked her a question and people exaggerated it. Others said it was a sign that the village should watch Veronica carefully. In Umadara, when something good happened to someone the village did not like, it was treated like a threat, not like joy. Mama Ajiro heard all the talk too. At first, she told herself it was only market gossip, the kind that rises and falls like smoke. But deep in her heart, she was worried, because she knew how the village acted when it did not understand something. Around midday, when the sun was strong and the streets were quieter, someone entered Mama Ajiro's compound and greeted politely. It was one of the prince's attendants. He greeted Mama Ajiro properly, greeted the elders sitting nearby, and greeted the household like someone trained in good manners. People began to gather at the edge of the compound, pretending they were just passing by, but really coming to watch. Ugo stepped
forward quickly, smiling sweetly, and greeted the visitor in the most respectful way she could. Mama Ajiro noticed it and felt uneasy because she knew her daughter's heart was too proud. The attendant returned Ugo's greeting politely, but his attention did not stay with her. After greeting, he asked Mama Ajiro if he could speak to Veronica. For a moment, it felt like the air stopped. Mama Ajiro's eyes moved to Veronica, and Veronica stepped out slowly, her hands still wet. She greeted him softly. Ugo's smile weakened, but she forced it back, pretending to be calm. The attendant spoke clearly. He said Prince Oni had noticed Veronica's calm spirit and her respectful nature. He said he had asked about her and heard she was hardworking. Mama Ajiro listened, still not understanding where it was going. Then the attendant said the prince would like to know Veronica properly, and if it pleased Mama Ajiro, he would like to begin steps that could lead to marriage. The words were simple, but the meaning was heavy. It landed in the compound like a stone dropped into water. Ugo could not hold herself. She laughed sharply and said maybe the prince had mixed up the sisters because it was usually the other one men asked for. Mama Ajiro turned quickly and warned Ugo to stop, but the harm was done. The attendant looked at Ugo calmly and said the prince had not mixed up anything. He then turned back to Mama Ajiro and said he would return in 3 days with elders to speak properly. After he left, Umadara did what it always did. People began to talk like drummers, and inside Mama Ajiro's house, a new war started quietly because Ugo felt insulted and Veronica felt afraid of attention she did not understand. That night, after the compound settled and Mama Ajiro finished the evening chores, she called her daughters into the room. She did not shout. She did not make a scene. Mama Ajiro's anger was not the kind that broke plates. It was the kind that sat in her chest and spoke slowly. She asked Ugo why she laughed at Veronica in front of a royal visitor. Ugo replied that she only said the truth and that the prince had no reason to choose Veronica when she, Ugo, was the one everyone admired. Mama Ajiro sighed deeply and reminded her that admiration from people did not mean approval from God or the ancestors. She warned Ugo that her mouth would bring her shame if she did not learn to control it.
Veronica sat quietly and listened. She felt many things at once. Part of her was happy, but she was also confused. She had never imagined a prince
Would even notice her, and she was not sure what it meant. She also felt pity for Ugo because even though Ugo was cruel, they were still twins. But pity is not always enough to stop jealousy. Ugo's eyes were sharp and her mind was working. She could not accept that Veronica, the same sister she mocked, could suddenly be the one chosen. She began to believe the world was cheating her. After Mama Ajiro went outside, Ugo turned to Veronica and spoke in a low voice. She told Veronica that the prince's interest would not last, and that Veronica should not disgrace herself by dreaming too big. Veronica answered calmly that she did not ask for any of it. Ugo said that was exactly the problem, that Veronica always pretended to be innocent while quietly taking what belonged to others. Veronica did not argue. She simply asked Ugo why she was angry with her and not with the village that pushed them into competition. Ugo did not like that question because it sounded too wise. She stood up and left the room. Later that same night, Veronica went to the backyard to breathe. She sat on a small stool and stared at the moon. That was when she remembered something she rarely spoke about, something that made her feel different from Ugo, even though they were twins. When they were younger, during a rainy season, Veronica once got lost on the way back from the stream. She had followed a small path and ended up near an old tree that elders warned children not to play around. She remembered sitting under that tree, tired and scared, and hearing a voice call her name, not loudly but clearly, as if the voice lived inside the wind. She did not see anyone, but the fear in her heart became smaller. She followed the sound and found her way home. She never told anyone because in Umadara, strange experiences can become trouble quickly. Now, with Prince Oni suddenly entering her life, that old memory returned. It made her wonder if some things were connected beyond what the village could see. She did not want spiritual trouble. She did not want attention that came with danger. She only wanted peace. But peace is not always given to people who have carried pain quietly. Sometimes destiny finds such people the way a hunter finds a path. Inside the house, Ugo could not sleep. She kept turning over and over. The image of Prince Oni looking past her played in her mind like a repeated song. At some point, she sat up and whispered to herself that she would not allow Veronica to win. In that moment, her jealousy became more than anger. It became a plan waiting for a chance. 3 days later, Prince Olemi returned, and this time he did not come alone. He came with elders from the palace side and 2 respected men from Umadara. In a village, when elders come to sit and talk, it means something serious is about to happen. Women watched from a distance, pretending to sweep, but really listening. Men gathered under a tree to act wise, even if they did not understand. Mama Ajiro prepared kola nuts and water, then sat respectfully. Veronica stayed inside at first, because in Umadara, a girl does not sit in front of elders during marriage talks unless she is called. The elders spoke properly, as tradition demanded. They praised Mama Ajiro for raising 2 daughters, and they spoke about peace between families. Then the elder who spoke for Prince Olemi talked plainly. He said Prince Olemi had come to show serious interest in Veronica and would like to begin the marriage steps. Mama Ajiro's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. She said she was surprised, but she was also grateful, and she would not insult a prince by refusing without a reason. She asked for time to speak to her daughter properly and to pray for wisdom. At that point, something unexpected happened. One of the palace elders looked around the compound and asked a quiet question. He asked if these girls were truly twins. Mama Ajiro answered yes. The elder nodded, but his eyes carried a strange seriousness. He then said something that made the older women in the background stop breathing. He said in old times, twins were not just children, they were signs.
He said when one twin is lifted up suddenly, the other twin must guard her heart because jealousy between twins is one of the fastest roads to spiritual disaster. The elder's words sounded like advice, but they also sounded like a warning. Ugo, listening from the side, felt embarrassed and angry. In her mind, the elder had already judged her. She wanted to step forward and show her goodness, but Mama Ajiro's eyes warned her not to move. Prince Olemi spoke only once during the meeting, and when he did, the compound became still again. He said he was not making a careless choice. He said he knew what he wanted, and he was ready to honor Veronica. Then he added one statement that sounded simple but carried hidden meaning. He said Veronica should not be afraid of the attention because her life had been watched longer than she knew. When the elders left, Umadara exploded with talk. People who had nothing better to do began to compare Veronica and Ugo.
Mocked Veronica yesterday now began to act like they had always supported her. Some women came to Mama Ajiro and said they always knew Veronica would marry well. Mama Ajiro smiled politely, but she understood human behavior. People love success, but they hate the person who succeeds before them. That evening, Mama Ajiro called Veronica and spoke gently to her. She asked if Veronica truly wanted this marriage. Veronica hesitated because she feared the unknown, but she also felt something calm about Prince Oni. She agreed to go forward, trusting her mother's guidance. Ugo did not join the talk. She sat outside, quiet, but her quiet was not peace. It was the silence of someone thinking deeply and refusing to accept what was happening. In Umadara, elders can warn you, mothers can advise you, and still a jealous heart can decide to walk its own road. Ugo had reached that point, and the village did not know that the real danger was not outside. It was inside the same house.